Leave it alone. Leave it alone. I know how to do this.
No back.
More like through the prism kind of your parents.
Yeah. Where's Richard? Richard. Hello, friends. What a lovely gathering of folks to celebrate a lovely man. We light a candle at the beginning of our meeting, and this one, of course, in loving memory of Charles Coe. Welcome to Community Church of Boston. My name is Dean Stevens. I call myself the fake minister, and my suffix is irrev. I don't know if you all know this, but Charles was scheduled to speak here a week ago Sunday, and I saw him in a hospital bed on Facebook, and I called him up, and I said, he said, well, I'm going home. Well, you could do it from home by Zoom if you wanted, or you could even do it from a hospital bed. I did that once. I led the meeting from a hospital bed back in but he said, no, let's just reschedule. So we rescheduled for February 15th. Come to find out that he's gone. And what a sad thing, and what a loss for all of us. Welcome. There's a whole bunch of folks on the Zoom, and there's a whole bunch of folks here, and we're just so glad and honored to be able to host this for Charles and for you all, his colleagues and his friends, his fellow poets, fellow authors, writers, and it's a wonderful thing. I'm going to start with a little number here. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts freely flower. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts give me power. No tyrant, no scholar can map them, no hunter can trap them, no one can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei, I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure. My conscience decrees, these thoughts I must treasure. My thoughts will not cater to duke or dictator, no one can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei, and if tyrants take me and throw me in prison, my thoughts will break free like blossoms in season. The structures will crumble, foundations will tumble, and freedom will cry. Die Gedanken sind frei, and freedom will cry. Die Gedanken sind frei. And in Central America, they said to the fallen comrades, Charles Coe, presente. And everybody says, presente. Everybody says louder. Presente. All right. Thank you, folks. We have a movable feast of an event here. It's your event. It's not my event. Charles spoke maybe 3 times over the years at Community Church, and some of those are on our YouTube channel. You just go to it and type in Charles Coe, and they'll come up. One of them was an assemblage of poets that included some people who were here as well. So it's just lovely that you're gathered to remember Charles, and this will be, as far as I can tell, an open mic, and I hope we'll have some poetry and some singing and some remembrances. Welcome to Community Church. I want to just tell you about 2 more events, maybe 3, that we have for the season. Next Sunday, speaker is Manisha Gelman, who is going to speak about El Salvador and the world's coolest dictator, Nayib Bukele. And I have to leave early because I'm flying to El Salvador. Week after that, a remarkable program. We give an annual Sacco and Vanzetti Award. The list of the recipients is right up there, and this year it goes to two awardees, activists. The first is the survivors of the USS Liberty, that reconnaissance ship that went down, bombed by the Israeli IDF in 1967. 40 sailors killed and 100 more wounded. The survivors still demand an explanation and investigation. The other recipient is the Gaza Sumud Flotilla, and we'll have Greg Stoker, who's quite a podcaster and broadcaster and influencer and a veteran himself. So that should be a really interesting program, December 14th. December 19th, the program is yours truly, Dean Stevens, and the group Magpie who will join us online. And we do a program, we've done it several times, it's called Holiday Songs You Won't Hear at the Mall. Richard, it's all yours, and this belongs to you. I'm just really excited to hear your stories and your poems and your writings about Charles. So thank you for gracing our place with your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Stevens. Welcome, everybody. Usual thing, habit dictates that I would say, it's good to be here. It's not good to be here. I wish it were not here. When I think about Charles, I think about his goofball sense of humor, first of all. And I want to ask him, what in the name of Elvis Presley's, Elvis Presley's dental floss are you doing not being here with us? But I know that he knew this terrain of grief, and I want to read a couple of his poems concerning that. The first that I'll read is called The Geology of Grief.
You have to speak closer
Inside the earth,
for people to hear you.
an irresistible force cracks the mantle of rock that separates crust from core. Shock waves swim to the surface to shatter ancient mountain ranges like piles of brittle bones. Eventually, orange sky fades to gray, ash and smoke subside, and a bitter tang settles on the tongue. We climb from the wreckage, toss our useless maps aside, and explore the new landscape on feet forevermore denied the illusion of solid ground. Well, I think most of us have aged beyond the illusion of solid ground that the poem refers to. Nevertheless, there's another poem here called When Grief Comes Calling. Grief waits patiently for the phone to ring, to bring the midnight news that can't be borne, but must be borne. Grief comes quietly to the door, slips through the keyhole like smoke, or the long tail of a bad dream that wraps around you and won't let go. When grief comes calling, try as you might, you cannot bar the uninvited guest who sours the milk, turns each bite of food to sand and dust. But as time passes, small pleasures begin their slow, tiptoed return. The sound of dry leaves dancing on the wind, or the smell of baking bread. And then one night as you drive over the crest of a hill, a full moon, lying low and huge in the sky, leaps into view like a giant child playing hide and seek. And in that moment of surprise and wonder, you cross the border of a new land where grief still resides, but no longer rules. I'm waiting for the day when grief no longer rules. It isn't here yet. there are a lot of other things I want to say, but there are a lot of people in the room, and I know you'll each and all have something you want to bring to this. I pulled this together last minute because I couldn't sit in my room by myself and grieve Charles. And I thought there must be other people in that situation, so here we are. So what I'm going to ask is if people will simply pop up one by one and do whatever is right for you. Just a memory, an anecdote, a poem of your own or of Charles's. And keep it to three to 5 minutes, please, because we are a great big group, and I mean great. This is a wonderful tribute to Charles. So I'm just going to turn it over. I'm leaving the mic right here. Just come up and do your thing. Thank you.
I dreamt I was dancing with Charles last night. He's still with me. He's still with all of us. You know, it's one of those things. A minister once told me that you can have something called a grief ambush. You know, you're in the supermarket, you look down the cereal aisle, and there's a cereal that was your brother's favorite or whatever. And that dream, it was kind of a grief ambush. Charles was a wonderful MC at a Leonard Cohen tribute concert. He came out to Star Island, where I ran a arts workshop with him. He wrote for the UU World. He launched in everyone's minds and hearts the idea of, once again, poetry of protest, and was a foremost contributor to that. I would read a funny poem, but should I? But Darling Jesus, is that okay? But Darling Jesus, there was a time when voices emanated from my pants would have caused concern. But now I simply shrugged and pulled out my phone to hear a recording. You have reached the Son of God. I am currently speaking with another supplicant. Please hold. Your salvation is important to me. This was followed by music. I expected celestial choirs, or maybe an elevator-friendly version of My Sweet Lord, but was instead treated to acoustic Delta blues guitar, interrupted after a few minutes by a voice, the voice himself, greeting me by name and asking me how he could serve. I was startled. Didn't expect to actually get through. What's the one true religion? I asked, flustered, just to have, something to say. All of them, he replied. None of them. I was taken aback. What? That's it? That's it, he said. Follow the golden rule. Leave the campground cleaner than you found it. Anything else? I have a lot of people on hold. I had nothing and mumbled my thanks. He said, go in peace, and broke the connection. I put down the phone and stared out the window. The guy across the street was clearing snow off his sidewalk. Never really liked that dude, but I grabbed my shovel to go lend a hand.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth, and I miss Charles. So I'm going to read this one called Get On Up. Get on up. Can anybody else here say that in the summer of 1967, when they were 14 years old, their mama took them to a James Brown concert? Did you walk alongside her through the gates of a minor league ballpark on a hot, cloudless Indiana night when the moon shone like a spotlight on the rough wooden stage? Was anybody else here sitting beside their mama on those hard benches when James's band, the Famous Flames, came out to lay down a red carpet of funk, and the announcer whipped that crowd like a bowl of black cream till the godfather of soul finally skated on stage like a water bug, telling everybody about his brand new bag? If your mama yelled like everybody else, then let it now be told. Let everybody know how she clapped her hands raw as James flew back and forth across the stage with sweat and grease from his conked up hair pouring down the front of his ruffled shirt, purple satin jacket ripped off and tossed aside. Let everybody know how she stomped her feet when he grabbed that mic like a dog grabs a bone, fell to one knee, and begged for just one more chance. Baby, please, baby, please. And then when he finally rose, shaking and spent, and someone tossed a robe over his sloping shoulders and helped him trudge off stage, did your mama scream when he suddenly froze in his tracks as if struck by the Holy Ghost, pulled away from his helper, tossed that robe aside, and ran back into the spotlight? And is there anybody else whose mama popped out of her seat like a piece of toast when the band scratched out the opening licks of "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud"? And did she scream herself hoarse, shouting out the chorus while James, wearing a coast-to-coast grin, held his mic aloft to gather in the music of the crowd? Was your mama there? Then stand up and testify. Get on up. Shout it out. And the last one I'm going to read is a poem called The Alchemist for Etheridge Knight. And this is, I think, one of Charles's really special poems. The Alchemist for Etheridge Knight. The alchemist would sit before his fire, muttering and chuckling to himself, and sipping dark potions that were forbidden to the children. His scarred brown face glowed crimson in the flames, and when he spoke, the words rolled slowly off his tongue like great stones, and gathered speed as they tumbled through the listener's mind. Those who came to sit brought pieces of their souls to toss into the fire. Sparks would crackle, flames like chicken bones at a hungry dog's mouth, and smoky fingers climbed the sky to caress the distant moon. The alchemist bore wounds from wars of many sorts, and 1,000 years of suffering softened his bones. And still he'd smile, rub his stubbly chin, and lean to whisper his warm-breathed secret in your ear, while demons prowl the dark just beyond the fire's glow. The poet stirs a pot of words and changes lead to gold. Blackbird, I always loved you, wherever you chose to fly. Now call home.
Hello, you're Richard, right? Thank you for organizing this. I almost think like Charles could be here, except there'd be a lot more laughter, right? He was serious.
Can I get you to use the mic?
I'm sorry, very sorry. Yes.
A whole bunch of YouTubers.
Yes, yes, sorry. My name is Ina, and I met Charles about over 20 years ago when we were friends. I've been to his garlic orgies. Someone asked me what that was. I said it's where we eat a lot of garlic and then have sex. And they thought that's not what it was. We did eat a lot of garlic. So anyway, so I want to share a brief story of how we met because I do think it says so much about Charles. And then I want to read one poem from this wonderful book of his. Whatever, 20 plus years ago, I was going to an exhibition that was organized by the artist Magdalena Campos Pon. She had started a gallery. I knew her because I worked at the ICA for a time. And anyway, a mutual friend who was an artist had told me, or maybe I had talked to her because I wanted her to come with me to the exhibition. She couldn't come, but she said, so the exhibition was artwork, and then Magdalena had invited writers to respond to the artwork, so those were also on display. And so this friend of mine said, I think my friend Charles is going to be there. You should meet him, you'd really like him. And so she proceeded to tell me about how he had these wonderful gatherings, and he loved food, and he was very funny. And she said, when you meet him, she didn't tell me anything of what he looked like. I didn't look him up. She said, when you meet him, ask him to do a Darth Vader imitation. So I went to this exhibition. It was wonderful. And afterwards, there was kind of like a reception where Magdalena locked the doors, and it was just those of us who she knew better. And we had arroz con, anyway, we had rice and beans. And anyway, we're lingering. And I looked around. I thought, I think that's Charles. And I went over to this man and I said, are you Charles? Are you Charles Coe? And he said, yes. And I said, Kathy McLaurin sent me. She asked me, she said I should ask you to do a Darth Vader interpretation. And guess what he did? He did a Darth Vader, I'm not going to try to imitate it, but with that wonderful voice of his. And so we laughed, and it was from that point, we were friends. We did a project together while I was at the ICA. Anyway, wonderful, we all know, miss him too much. There are two poems in here. One is about absence, but I think I came in a little bit late, but it seemed, Richard, you were reading a poem about grief. So I'm gonna read this other poem called A Symphony of Crickets. And the title of this poem is also the name of a collaboration that he began 3 or 4 years ago with the musician Ken Field. And I went to one of their concerts on the Cape a few years ago, and it was really wonderful. It was music with poetry spoken aloud. This poem clearly predates that, but anyway, A Symphony of Crickets. I owned one suit as a child, a reddish-brown wide wale corduroy number with red and gold paisley, fake silk lining. That one Christmas, Mother intentionally purchased 2 sizes too big. You'll grow into it, she replied to my whined objections. It was made of cheap, heavy fabric that bent only grudgingly at elbows and knees. I was Frankenstein's monster, stomping stiff-legged through the forest, chased by torch-wielding villagers and their determined bloodhounds. And the pants rubbed with humiliating ferocity. I was a walking symphony of crickets. I wore my suit the day in 8th grade I took 2 buses alone to hear Isaac Stern perform with the Indianapolis Symphony. I was studying violin and would spend hours in the library, headphones on, listening to his records. I'd saved enough from my paper route to buy a ticket, and when I got to the hall, I climbed to my seat high in the back of the balcony, one brown face awash in a sea of white, in my little cheap suit, listening to the maestro, my crickets and I, transfixed and silent. I just thought that said so much about Charles.
I'd like to read a poem by Charles from his collection, Purgatory Road. Fish Story. At the supermarket with dinner company coming in something of a hurry. I'm standing at the fish counter while the person ahead of me is in the middle of a private piscine consultation, asking whether to choose this fish or that fish or this fish for a particular dish. Inquiring into the provenance of the finalist, asking for cooking advice, and I realize this errand will not be a quick one, after all. That I will indeed be standing at this fish counter until, no, beyond the end of time when the human race has long since vanished, a fading image on the retina of the universe and the earth itself, but a lifeless cinder drifting in eternal circles around the sun. I had read this poem to another small group soon after we learned about Charles's death, and I'm thinking, what on earth called me about this poem? And I think it is one because I can see Charles' impatience melting into good nature and just kind of accepting it. And then also and that has this kind of humor and warmth in it, but then he steps back to a larger and more universal and maybe glum in a way image of us all being, the earth being a lifeless cinder drifting in eternal circles around the sun. But despite that, the part about eternal circles around the sun, I think of Charles, always with us, and his sunshine, his warmth circling around us. Thank you.
My name is Reggie Gibson. Charles Coe was my friend. I'm getting sick of saying goodbye to poets. And speaking earlier, because when we say goodbye to poets, we don't only just say goodbye to a human being, we say goodbye to a language. We say goodbye to a thing that connects us. We say goodbye to a way of seeing the world. Right? And I love that Richard Blanco's statement about poets being emotional historians. I like to think of us as taxonomists of human emotion and experience. And we lose that when we lose a poet. Memento mori. According to legend, a Roman general who won a great battle would be paraded through the streets of the city, standing in a chariot, waving to tens of thousands, cheering and shouting his name. Behind him would stand a common soldier, or sometimes a slave, holding a crown above the general's head in a gently mocking gesture and whispering in his ear to keep his vanity and pride in check. Remember, you must die. There's a tiny lump on the back of my right hand, invisible to the eye. Years ago, when I was being prepped for brain surgery, a catheter was inserted there and the bump remains. Sometimes, when I'm tired, or bored, or anxious, I'll realize my finger has been moving over it slowly, back and forth, stroking it like a talisman. The late afternoon light that slants through the blinds, painting zebra stripes on the dining room table, takes me back to my sister's last day, when she lay in the hospital bed and the sun streaming through the window illuminated the salt and pepper hair, wispy and dry, spreading out against her pillow. And the last piece I'll read from Mr. Coe. Poem for an Absent Friend. It's a piece that he wrote while he was with another friend who had cancer, had gotten the diagnosis. And he wrote this here on the Boston Commons. So we walk across the common, past pigeons pecking in the grass that scatter before the lion-hearted toddlers charge, past the piper whose ancient call to battle bounces unheeded off the blank faces of high-rise condos, past beautiful young women in spring finery who will offer their bodies as gifts for someone else to unwrap. And you're taking it all in on this farewell tour of the world, taking it in and letting it go. A young couple near the fountain holds a baby. An older woman with a camera clicks the shutter as we pass by, and we are captured in a frame. Perhaps 100 years from now, someone flipping through a dusty scrapbook will pause a moment to contemplate our faded images, told ancient and mysterious ghosts.
Just a quick pause to move a whole bunch of chairs to the back. There's lots of people still coming in, and welcome all of you. And also want to invite anybody who is joining us on Zoom to raise your hand if you'd like to read or tell a story. I'm back there back and forth, so that's available to you. There's about 50 or more of you on the Zoom and more of you on the YouTube.
Got the mic stand there, okay. There we go.
What a graceful interlude.
think we should resume with people's contributions to the evening. So whoever wants to go next, please come up. Jan?
Thank you. I'm Jan Schreiber. I've read with Charles Coe on many occasions in the past. I want to read a poem for Charles, which actually came to me a short time before he died. It's called Serenade. Then 6 sober men carrying trombones got off the bus. The leaves were brown, the streets were bare, and frost was in the air. They did not hesitate, but strode out toward the edge of town, and on reaching its outer bound, started playing there. They had arranged themselves around a deep impression in the ground, and what they played carried a profound sense of loss and regret. You were, it seems, their only audience, and you were stirred by what you heard and dared to let your guard down. As you did, you felt the hard ground rising to meet you. The embracing sound bore you down and down. You knew it was for you they played, with echoes like a distant bell. The great horns seemed to wish you well. The tones were deep on the edge of sleep, into whose folds you fell. It was your serenade, and you were not dismayed.
Hi, my name's Jessica, and I don't even remember when I met Charles 10, 15 years ago. And I think, like everyone here, I think once you've been touched by Charles, you're just touched forever. There's something so potent about him. So at any rate, I of course love his poetry and his storytelling, his humor, his music, but I also like to follow his Facebook posts. And a few days before he died, he was writing about the Prostate Cancer Chronicles. And then for some reason, this one small post that he wrote stayed with me after I learned that he died, and I wanted to just share it with you. He wrote, "It's illegal to own just one guinea pig in Switzerland because they're social animals that need companionship for their well-being. The law considers keeping a single guinea pig as animal abuse, as isolation can cause loneliness and depression." Then there's sort of a break, and he writes, "Not really going anywhere with this, just thought you all might like to know." And then people weighed in with a lot of comments, and my response was, "You took us to a moment of truth, Charles Coe. Thanks."
I knew Charles Coe over 50 years ago because we went to college together. Quaker College in Indiana. I'm sure he would not remember me. I'm not sure I remember anything about him, except when I saw his name on Facebook many years ago. Something went ding, I started reading, and I really thought I was going to live the rest of my life. I'm a year older than he is. And oh, by the way, he dropped out. So I'm not a poet. I wasn't going to speak, except I heard from, I'm in an orchestra with another poet, Richard Cambridge. When we spoke last night, he said, "No, come to this. You know something about him nobody knows. he went to college in Indiana, Earlham. And so I thought I would have the rest of my life with his Bad Joke Wednesdays and his stories, and some of which had nothing to do with him being a black man. There was one story where he was walking along near Fenway Park and there were two young white tough guys, and I was thinking, uh-oh. And it had nothing to do with uh-oh. He asked them, what's the matter? You guys looked down, and they said, we can't find a package store. And he said, you want me to tell you where there is one? And off he went. I mean, it's like the stories. And so I thought I'd tell you a little about Earlham and what was going on then, because it was during the Vietnam War. When we invaded Cambodia, there were no sit-ins at Earlham. The whole college simply shut down from top to bottom. Half the college got on buses to protest the war in Washington. The other half cranked out mimeographs. And as I got to know Charles through his Facebook posts, I thought I sensed some of this Quaker simplicity, connectivity, good food, sharing good food. Oh my God, his food posts. And creative warmth. And so I felt gut punched, and I will miss him on Facebook terribly.
Hi, my name's Chuck. I didn't really know Charles well, though I certainly enjoyed his Facebook posts indeed. He made social media a pleasure to be a part of. But I had a couple of interactions with him. I was at that production of A Symphony of Crickets on the Cape that was mentioned earlier, and I was so taken by it that I told him and Ken Field, who's a personal friend of mine, that if you guys ever get this together and bring it to Boston, I would love to tape it. They did. They brought it to the Somerville Armory last year, and I did, in fact, tape it. So I was going to give this a try by playing it in my iPod through this speaker here to see if you actually hear his voice and hear his sense of humor. And I just thought it'd be a nice thing to share that tonight. I just got to turn Bluetooth on, pardon me. I wasn't technically quite ready to do this, but now it should work. Wonderful, please connect. Wonderful, come on. Okay, if it's not going to connect, I can just try using the speaker here. Maybe that'll work. But this is a Symphony of Crickets as performed at the Somerville Theater just over a year ago. Let's see if this is going to work.
I've always wanted to go, not always, but for the last 10 years or so, since I started playing the didgeridoo, I wanted to go to Australia. And in 2018, I was planning a trip, but I was awarded this fellowship in Boston, and it was a year program, and I couldn't take a month off to go to Australia, so I put it up. And so then I decided that I was going to go in winter of 2020.
Okay. Well, if somebody else want to come speak in. Yeah, I've got his laugh there. We're quite going to later. I'll see if the speaker works. I'll try again. We'll turn the radio this week, yes.
I can still hear the didgeridoo. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'll grow a little closer. Hey everyone, my name's Heather Nelson, and I just wanted to speak to how Charles was not only a great poet and a great person, but he was also a really good teacher. Some of you probably already know that. Maybe there's some of his students out here in the audience, but I got to spend a week with him in Truro, not this past summer, but the summer before at Castle Hill, taking a class with him. And one of the things I really appreciated about him was during that time, he actually wasn't funny. He was very serious, and he took everybody in the class very seriously. It was me and 6 other women. We all had really different voices. And he never encouraged us to be like him. He encouraged us to be more like ourselves. I very much admired his performing voice, the way he could make music with his voice. I asked him, Charles, how could I become a better reader? And he put me on the spot, and he made me stand up right in front of the class, and he opened up his book, and he said, read this right now. And so I did, kind of nervously, and he said, oh, Heather, you're standing up, you're strong, you're clear, you didn't stumble, you're confident, your voice is fine, you're good. And because he said that, I felt like I was fine, and I'm just such a generous person, and I miss him a lot. Thank you.
My apologies, I think I got technology working now. Try one more time.
I've always wanted to go, not always, but for the last 10 years or so, since I started playing the didgeridoo, I wanted to go to Australia. And in 2018, I was planning a trip, but I was awarded this fellowship in Boston, and it took me, it was a year program, and I couldn't take a month off to go to Australia, so I put it off. And so then I decided that I was going to go in winter of 2020. So needless to say, that did not happen, but someday I will go. We're going to do this piece now called Dreamtime.
Anyway, he goes into playing the didgeridoo for a while and then comes back with some poetry. But I'm a member of WMBR. I do a radio show there on Thursday afternoons. I'm going to be playing some of this on my show this Thursday. That is Symphony of Crickets. So I just wanted to put that out there. And tomorrow is Bad Joke Wednesday, but none of us are in the mood for a bad joke this time around. But I'll post that on his Facebook page as well. I'll be playing the Symphony of Crickets on WMBR on Thursday afternoon. And thank you for your time. And Charles, we miss you, and we miss your wit and wisdom, and we'll carry on without you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We have a film to show before the next person comes up. Here we go. Roberto Mighty is
Roberto Mighty.
Christmas night, 1957. Grandma's house was packed with family and friends, all orbiting a dining room table jammed with cakes, pies, and cookies, a clove-studded honey-glazed ham, a bronze turkey slightly smaller than a baby pterodactyl, and at the center, the star of the show, a gigantic crystal ball that appeared once a year, with a half-gallon chunk of vanilla ice cream floating in a lake of Grandma's eggnog. I wrote this book as a way of finding out some things about my parents that I felt like I'd never known. And the process of writing it was a way of getting closer to them and sort of uncovering some ancient mysteries that run through every family and sharing those in a way I hope that other people could relate to in their own families. Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas, August 1951. The milk-white sun gazes down like the eye of some implacable lizard. In the photograph, you squint in brand new uniform, shirt too large, as if yanked off the shelf and tossed your way after some bored corporal's cursory glance. The cap clings to your buzz cut at the proper angle, but Father, you look like exactly what you are, a boy playing soldier. Some barracks buddy, forever anonymous, snaps the shutter. You trade places. Later, Send pictures home to mothers who will lie awake because they know that fire and steel love the taste of flesh. My father, in terms of what I would need to forgive my father for, my father didn't have a mean bone in his body. He was a child in certain ways, and he was a child with money. He was a child in dealing with the family. He sort of let my sister and me run wild a little bit. And when he got older, he made some very, 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 very bad decisions about the family finances that frankly I'm still dealing with. So I'm trying to, and writing the book was in part a way of forgiving him for some of those things as well. Well, some of my friends have been amused because in the last couple of years I've taken up the didgeridoo. And it's like, why? Well, I don't know exactly why. I've just been fascinated with tribal sounds, with drones. I do overtone singing as the Buddhists do, and I do traditional jazz as well. And it all seemed of a piece to me, the sort of meditative sounds, the almost ritualistic sounds. And so the didgeridoo, I don't know if I chose it, I think it chose me. It is sometimes necessary to walk along a moonlit riverbank, barefoot, on the sodden strip where water meets land, to remind oneself that something in the mud remembers the stars. My mother cut my hair. The routine never varied. Saturday mornings in the kitchen, the chair with a vinyl seat that stuck to my legs when I wore shorts, towel draped over my shoulders, newspapers spread across the linoleum. I never felt so much distance between us as in those seemingly intimate moments. We seldom spoke. The only sound were the whisper and click of scissors, the endless murmur of the television drifting in from the living room. As she stood behind me, dressed in motherhood's ill-fitting robe, I wonder what messages she read in the hair that settled around her feet, like snow in some private winter. My mother was a troubled person, I realize, looking back on it now. And there was a lot of rigidity in the way she lived her life and dealt with the home and dealt with my sister and me. And at certain points in my life, I felt a lot of resentment about that. But I realized that part of my own healing process was forgiving her for some of those things. That it wasn't really about doing something for her. In a way, it was about doing something for me. When I was first approached about having a poem of mine used as a basis for a short film, I was very flattered and fascinated because I'd never had a piece of my writing adapted for a film before. It was a real education for me. I had to learn that the filmmaker wasn't going to make a line-by-line film about my poem. The
that the poem was going to be the platform, the foundation for a work that was going to incorporate the filmmaker's artistic vision as well. And I really enjoyed seeing how this played out. Well, I've been doing a fair amount of traveling these last couple of months for work, to teach at workshops, to do readings. As far as the works I'm in the middle of right now, I'm working on a family memoir. I'm working on a third volume of poetry. I'm working on the fourth draft of a screenplay that, fingers crossed, I have an agent who might be interested in. So I'm just, I'm not letting much dust settle on me at this point. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sins. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sins. I just can't seem to catch my breath. I guess I ain't got much time left. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sins. Tell that gal of mine I said goodbye. Won't you tell that gal of mine I said goodbye? I hope she finds a better man, one who'll do the best he can. Won't you tell that gal of mine I said goodbye?
Oh, thank you for the film. That was marvelous. And thank you, everyone. My name's David Miller, and I met Charles, I think it was in the 1990s. I was a member of the Mobius Artist Group, actually. This was before I had really much engagement with poetry at all. He was on the board of directors of Mobius. And he was on the board, so I was a member of the artist group, and which means I didn't really have that much contact, in fact, but we'd be in mutual meetings sometimes, in mutual discussions, and I thought, what an interesting person, what a unique perspective and a valuable person to get to know. And he brought a lot to Mobius as a member of the board. And then he, as I recall, then got a job, took a position at the Mass Council on the Arts. And so then he couldn't stay on the Mobius board because that's a conflict of interest. And I thought, well, all right, that was an interesting person to get to know for a few years. And there are people that come into your life and you don't necessarily think you have an ongoing connection. So you say, well, it was nice knowing that person. And a number of years later, I eventually found myself really kind of, in poetry, very committed, only to discover, to my great pleasure, that Charles had already been there many years before me, and so I got to know him again, and I thought, this is great. It's like I had a second chance, and a much better and a much more sustained second chance to get to know Charles, and so I really treasure the friendship. I treasure the friendship that I had with Charles and his voice. So I'll read something also from All Sins Forgiven that hasn't been heard yet. DNA. The young woman on the bus wearing headphones has a mole on her neck. Perhaps the same mole in the same place on some ancient ancestor itched with sweat as she crawled on hands and knees through the king's garden, back bent, pulling weeds. I know someone whose husband died a month after their baby's birth. Years later, she had to turn away when her teenage son brushed the hair from his girlfriend's face with exactly the same gesture as the father he had never known. Some mysteries are greater than the birth of stars. That sound you hear the moment before sleep is not the wind, but your own flesh in a timeless, whispered conversation with itself. Thanks.
My name is Tino, and I have to say that all of us have a childhood, and so did Charles. And he wrote about it. And some of us who write poems eventually wind up writing about, one or two childhood poems. Here is Charles' poem titled Mulberries. Am I projecting enough toward the back? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Mulberries. One day, near the end of summer vacation, when all the easily picked berries had been plundered, a few buddies and I climbed the tallest mulberry tree in Military Park on a dare to the highest branches that would support our weight. And lying back on the sturdy limbs, lounging like young lords, reached out to pluck those darkest berries beyond the reach of earthbound peasants, our only competition, the indignant birds who complained at the intrusion before flying off. With machine-like efficiency, we dispatched those berries, bursting with juice that dyed our lips and tongues and teeth purple and ran down our chins. Eating our fill, beyond our fill, we finally slowed, leaning back on our thrones in the sky. Down on the ground, the world carried on in the usual way. There was a distant cry of a baby in a carriage, the rumble of a truck like muted thunder. And all the while, creeping up like a slow-moving fog, the inevitability of sixth grade, of starched nuns and math homework, and one more step toward distant, unimaginable adulthood. We had no words for any of this. We just felt it in our muscles, our bones. As golden light filtered through the leaves and late afternoon melted into early evening, we knew our mothers stood on porches and back stoops waiting to call us to the suppers for which we now had no room. The hard branches had begun to punish our backs, and the rough bark shave our skin. So on some silent signal, like birds changing course mid-flight, we began the descent, coming down more carefully than we'd climbed, returning reluctantly to the ordinary world.
Hi, I'm Ann Hirsch. I met Charles in 2016 or 2015, and I met Charles through Karen Goodfellow. We started a program in the city of Boston, an artist residency, and I also met Cornell Coley, who's here tonight, through Karen. And Charles, well, I'll skip right to it. Charles gave me a poem in 2017, which he said he wrote for me, which is a privilege that I can't really describe or express. So he said the poem was for me, but in the poem he says it's for all of us, so I think it was waiting for this day. Sorry, I can, sorry. So, the poem is called Every New Thing, for Anne. Every new thing is an act of treason, a betrayal of the comfortable, the familiar. An animal that has known only the cage will cringe in a corner if the door suddenly swings open, squealing on ancient, unoiled hinges. If I would have one wish for you, for me, for us all, it would be to try to remember that our cages are locked only by the fear of change, that we have the power to push those bars aside, to take one step, then another, into a bright new world.
I want to keep sitting there saying, should I, shouldn't I? I know Charles because he served on the board of New England Poetry Club, as several of us here tonight have, for many years, and we were all so grateful for his counsel and his humor. And a year ago yesterday, he threw a beautiful potluck for volunteers at his house. So his generosity just rings through his whole life, everything he does. And I don't know, I guess we all should emulate that. You know, I loved the Cricket Symphony. He gave so much of himself in that, and in all the stories that he tells, it's always about immense humanity. And his Facebook, I tried to tell him that he should publish, you know, a collection from the Facebook. It's just so precious, and I hope somehow that gets put together. But here's a little poem that kind of reminds me of the Facebook, because it's a little story that just shows how much he loves people. Opportunity. A woman in the park stands talking to a friend while a little girl sitting behind her on a bench feeds an ice cream cone to the family dog. Dogs are noted opportunists where food is concerned, and this one's no exception, making short work of the job at hand, or rather the job at tongue, while the woman's attention is elsewhere. Funny how our idea of what's important changes with time. When I am older and grayer, looking back on this day, I won't remember the headlines, the daily litany of atrocities and disasters. I won't remember the comings and goings of some flavor of the month celebrity. I'll remember the way the wind tossed dry leaves on a sunny autumn afternoon. I'll remember a dog's tongue, resolute and efficient, and a little girl's conspiratorial smile.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cecily, and I feel a little bit like I'm at AA or something. I've known Charles for more than 35 years, and he's woven through my personal and professional life in ways that I'm astonished by, because I know that's true of all of you and many people who aren't in this room. And I wonder how he managed to be so vast and also so close, so intimate, so there. How did he do that? How did he know all of us so well? I'm constantly finding, oh, here's another community that Charles, lived within, and another group of people who treasured him. And I didn't know anything about it. It's like another solar system, another universe, another galaxy. So I would like to also just say, because it's come up, that I was the instigator of Symphony of Crickets. Ken Field is my partner, and he was musing about doing a new project that might pay tribute to African American music. And I said, you should talk to Charles. And he was a little skeptical, knowing that Charles was a poet, but of course Charles was a musician also. And so Charles was over for dinner, and I said, Charles, will you read us a poem? And of course, he loved to do that over the dining table, just read a poem, and read them so well. And I can say that Ken was won over very quickly to the idea of weaving music and stories and poetry, and they did an amazing job together on that collaboration. I want to read a poem that's a little bit long, and I want to read it because I read it to my father when he was old and ill and needed a laugh. And so I feel like Charles gave me that. So if you'll bear with me, this is how my father learned to cook. And I always feel like it's a little more than a little bit about Charles too. When I first, I forgot that it was about his father and thought it was about him, in fact. But here it is, how my father learned to cook. Because of tomatoes in a neighbor's garden, my father learned to cook. Because of late summer homegrown Indiana tomatoes drooping on the vine, my father learned to cook. Imagine him at 12, leaning over the fence of the neighbor's garden, curious but shy, and the neighbor pointing to the open gate. Imagine father digging in the soil, caught in the rhythm of the gardener's dance, and later handing his surprised mother the overstuffed bag. A pretty story, but it never happened. Here's what did. Because of tomatoes in a neighbor's garden, my father learned to cook, but not because he admired them or helped weed or pick them. He and his buddies stole them to throw at houses and stray dogs and passing cars, crimes reported to their parents by various adult informants. His mother, raising him alone, had done her best to play the father's role, though she found it hard to discipline her rambunctious son. But the day a neighbor called with news of the tomato escapade, she devised a punishment diabolical in its simplicity. She marched him to the kitchen, perched him on a stool, told him he was grounded, and made him watch her cook. What a cruel fate for a young buccaneer who longed to be out kicking trash cans and shooting birds with BB guns, confined to a kitchen and forced to watch women's work. So which of them was more surprised when his mood shifted from sullen anger to curiosity, when he started asking, "How you know that meat's done without cutting it?" Or, how can you tell that bread's ready to bake? Until one day she said, go wash your hands, I'll show you how to knead the dough. So, because of tomatoes in a neighbor's garden, my father learned to cook. Because of late summer, homegrown Indiana tomatoes, sun-warmed, drooping on the vine, nestled like baseballs in the palm of a young boy's hand.
My name is Tom Daly, for Charles Coe. Here we are, sparkless and jolting, as we clutch the spasming tidings of your death. Here we remember the gospel lapse, the underboom of your voice, the unwinding knot of your kindness, the kiltering nick of your invective. How you outguessed us and gentled us. Over us now, the heavy heave and the relented roar of your waves cleaving away from us. Will the remembrance of your bracing forbearance console us, or roll away our skittish encumbrances? Will the memory of the widening mile of your goading and intensifying smile inure us or spur us to stiffen the slackness of our tongues? Will it thrum us away from the straits of every cowering doldrum? Long may the teeth of your words tempering steel saw at the rot of the body politics congeal. Long may the terse urgency of your palpating lines inveight us to resistance, to any self-righteous resign.
Hi, I'm Ben. Charles is my mother's tenant, so I got to know him pretty well. And he was, for his huge personality and his appreciation of music, his playing of didgeridoo and guitar, and his appreciation of jazz and his style. I'll very much miss him. I finally got to one of his salons and read a poem, but now I'm going to read one of his poems. I play music, so I'm reading one about music. Get on up. This is from the Out of the Blue Writers Unite collection. Can anybody else here say that in the summer of 1967, when they were 14 years old, that Mama took them to a James Brown concert? Did you walk alongside her through the gates of a minor league ballpark on a hot, cold, cloudless Indiana night when the moon shone like a spotlight on the rough wooden stage? Was anybody else there sitting beside their mama or those hard benches when James Band, the famous Flames, came out to lay down a red carpet of funk, and the announcer whipped that crowd in like a bowl of black cream till the Godfather of Soul finally skated on stage like a water bug, telling everybody about that brand new bag? If your mama yelled like everyone else, then let it now be told. Let everybody know how. She clapped her hands raw as James flew back and forth across the stage with sweat and grease from his conked-up hair pouring down in front of his ruffled shirt, purple satin shirt ripped off and tossed aside. Let everybody know how she stomped her feet when he grabbed that mic like a dog grabs a bone, fell to one knee and begged for just one more chance. Baby, baby, please. And then, when he finally rose, shaking and spent, and someone tossed a robe over his sloping shoulders and helped him trudge off stage, did your mama scream when he suddenly froze in his tracks as if struck by the Holy Ghost, pulled away from his helper and tossed that robe aside and ran back into the spotlight? And is there anybody else whose mama popped out of her seat like a piece of toast when the band scratched out the opening lyrics of Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud? And did she scream herself hoarse, shouting at the chorus with James wearing a coast-to-coast grin, held his mic aloft to gather in the music of the crowd? Was your mama there? Then stand up and testify. Get on up and shout it out.
My name is Harris Gardner. I knew Charles for almost 25 years as a professional poet and colleague and friend. He was very generous with his time, and he featured in many of the venues that I curated over the years. And he also appeared many times in the Boston National Poetry Month Festival. He was also a generous contributor. Whenever I called him, he would send a poem into Ibbison Street. And we were supposed to have coffee after he was somewhat recovered from his surgery, but I will have to drink a extra cup or two in his memory. I want to read one poem, a relatively short one. Can you all hear me all right?
Yeah.
And I got here a little bit late, not too late, but a little, because there was a snafu with my ride. So the one I'm going to read, if it's already been read, I have a backup. So this one is called When Charlie Mingus Played His Bass. Did anybody read it? Okay. When Charlie Mingus played his bass, burnished wood glowed like black ice. 8th notes and 16th notes dashed naked through the smoke-filled room, played hide and seek and kissed each other on the lips. When Charlie Mingus played his bass, rivers danced with the moon, left muddy footprints all along their banks. Spirits of the trees recognized their brother's song and hummed along, deep in ancient forests where no light ever shone except at night. You could hear your heartbeat keeping time, and stray cats yowling at the moon, and dust motes floating in Pharaoh's tomb when Charlie Mingus played his bass.
Speaking of music, I first met Charles in 1999 when I took a job at Mass Cultural Council, and he's been, as Cecily mentioned, a work buddy, a writing buddy. Just a remarkable human being. I miss him very much. I'm just going to play one tune, an Irish slow air called Paddy's Rambles Through the Park. And it's one of those tunes that a man had something to drink and he wandered off into the night and fell asleep. And then this tune came to him. And it might have been the Little People, the fairies. But when he woke up, this was in his repertoire. So, new strings.
If somebody opened the piano a little bit, I would play a little bit of Bach. Charles Coe was my program director at, is this
Yes, speak right into there.
my program director at Mass Cultural Council. And the first time that I spent any time with him, this is in the 1990s, somebody had written something like tearing me apart to Mass Culture Council. And we were all at a Chamber Music America conference, and he invited me to lunch. And I didn't know him at all. And we had this, amazing conversation, just because that's the way he was. And then it was, I'm not sure if he even told me then that, he didn't really believe this person, but he was kind of checking me out at the same time. And ever since, I know I'm not the only one, but Charles has been like a protector in my life. And that poem, Every New Thing, that somebody read earlier, he ended many of his poetry readings with that poem. And you remember the last line is the cage that the only thing that keeps it closed is your fear of change. I think that was like his life motto, and he saw that with other people, and he helped. That's how he helped so many people to have the courage to be the artist or the person that they were. I was riding the train on Tuesday, or maybe it was Wednesday, going to a Gunther Schuller World concert at New England Conservatory, and I realized that Charles would love this concert, and he actually managed to listen to it over the internet. And then the next night, and while I'm riding on the train, I'm calling him because there's this wonderful Magali Maeza who served with him and with Convergence Ensemble, was in town. So anyway, I was talking to him the whole train ride. He was telling me about Rand Blake, how he knew Rand Blake, and that he'd sent a poem about Charlie Mingus to Rand Blake, and Rand Blake actually answered him. The next night, he was part of a Zoom meeting with Convergence Ensemble Board, and he told everybody about this incredible concert. I mean, this is how he was living his life all the time. I want to read, I don't know, I had to get here late. Did anybody read Teaching My Imaginary Son to Fish? No, okay. I think he had this one on his wall. I had it on my refrigerator. I think this is also, this tells you about like his philosophy of life to me. Teaching my imaginary son to fish. Never take fishing too seriously. Find a shade tree by a creek bank to lean against on a sunny day with a mild breeze blowing. Toss your line into the water and set aside, for a while, the cares of the day. Never move too fast. In fact, try to move as little as possible. And remember, sometimes your best days fishing will be the ones you go home empty-handed. These are lessons my father taught me, not in words, but in the way he'd whistle while unraveling a tangled line, or laugh when some big catfish slipped the hook. I am the end of my father's line, with no one but you to teach those things I am now beginning to understand. And I struggle with his final lesson, the mere fact of his absence, an idea that wriggles in my grasp like a worm I can't seem to thread onto the hook. And Charles, 3 times for Convergence Ensemble with the guitarist Aaron, Large Kaplan, did a program of all poems about music, and then Aaron played music. And we will make it available so you can hear it. It's extraordinary and beautiful. And that was a huge part of who Charles was.
So we had the pleasure of meeting Charles about 10 years ago when we were invited to his house for dinner by a mutual friend. And it seemed like he had always been our friend. So most of my exposure to Charles since then has been on Facebook. And it's kind of unusual to find somebody on Facebook who actually shows you who they are in a good way and invites you into their world. And I appreciate that about him. This is a song.
We are?
Yes, we're Rosie and Brian Amador of Sol y Canto. And this is a song that I just finished that I would have very much loved to have played for Charles, and so I will.
Yes.
It's dedicated to all the people these days who are turning out in very creative and joyful and imaginative ways to oppose what's going on in our country these days, especially around immigration and the targeting of immigrants. And I've written several songs about that subject that were angry and sad, and this one I decided it was time to write something joyful for the people that are doing this because of all the beautiful things that they're bringing out to these protests. It's called Bring Out Your Joy.
I've seen some times and like this. Bring out your sadness, bring out your anger, bring out your kindness, bring out your voice.
Bring out your patience, your perseverance, bring out your courage, bring out your joy, bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy.
Bring out your weirdness, bring out your queerness, bring out your sachet, bring out your snark.
Bring out your laughter, your sense of humor, bring out your dance moves, bring out your joy, bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy, 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 bring out your joy.
I'm Richard Cambridge, and I was one of Charles's fans on the Charles Coe show on Facebook. And I'm not into jokes, so that wasn't my thing, but every day he seemed to illuminate something from the simple reality that we all live in, that you wouldn't notice, but he would find the essence of its beauty. And he seemed to carry that around with him from the many people that have testified of all the different universes he was part of. A kind of blessing was upon him, a kind of Shekinah that followed him around. I don't want to say it was holy, it was more of the earth, and earth holiness, because Charles was of the earth. What I wanted to share is a poem, not by me, but one of his many fans on Facebook, Mariana McDonald. Mariana McDonald. Mariana and I are part of the Black Earth Institute out of Wisconsin, a collective of writers that center around justice, the earth, and spirituality. And she'd written a poem. She doesn't live here, and I just responded like through Charles's network because it was on his page that I would bring the poem with me to read tonight. And this is, let me find it, Mariana McDonald. Mariana, if you're out there in Zoom land, here's your poem for Charles. For Charles Coe. When I heard, I gasped and shook my head. Oh no, can't be. That's wrong. He just survived tough surgery, gave cancer a firm right hook. So how? I'm still stunned. Heartbroken, Charles. I can't believe you're gone. I have not met you outside these cyber pages where you always brought a smile to our weary minds. You were a stubborn happiness each day, gifting jokes and insights and humbly offering your work. A happy, loving man, please know if you can hear my voice now in your heavenly leisure, can tune into the scores of grief played softly on the edges of eternity. Dear Charles, you are not gone. To us, the many ones who love you, you are simply changing channels. On this vast screen we share, we won't forget you, ever. Rosie, I know he heard that song, you guys, you just sang. I mean, I could feel it reaching him. On this vast screen we share, we won't forget you, ever. Take care there in stars and clouds and laugh with us on Wednesdays. And to give you an idea of just how he was everywhere, I mean, how does one be omniscient or omnipresent? I mean, but he was. Some time ago, I was just going through my archives or closet, and I had found this envelope, and inside the envelope were this photograph. There's about 10 copies of it in here. I'm thinking, well, where the heck is that from? Elizabeth, you're in this photo. I planned to give this to you and one to Charles, but you're getting this tonight. This photo is from either a few minutes before or a few minutes just after the new millennium turned. And the photo is myself, Patino Vasquez, who co-founded Singing with the Enemy with me. There's Charles, Stephen Ratzener, Elizabeth, Dawn Kramer, Kathy Salmon's a very fine poet, and Lee Min Mo. Here we are. I don't know how we all got together. It may have been Dawn or Stephen, but at some point, you know, in the 1999, we were called together to this place, and we all saw each other. Some of us knew each other, and we were told that we were going to have the spot at the public library on Millennium Night, on first night, and that we were going to descend the stairs at midnight. Martin Espada was with us. He's not featured in this picture, but he was one of us as well. And so we would rehearse, you know, every once in a while until we got the pieces down that we were going to do. So when we descended that tall stairway at midnight, we would be bringing poetry into the new millennium. And the photo was by George Kusowitz, and somehow I found this just recently, and I meant to give it. And so, what can I say? They just, Elizabeth? I'm limping a little bit because just in front of this place, I tripped over a piece of pavement, and I nearly like stumbled forward. I don't know what else to say, so that sort of is a testimony that he just pops up everywhere. Kind of Forrest Gump, I suppose. I don't know. But Charles, you're a dear soul. You've touched us all. Thank you so much. Bon voyage.
It's wonderful to have so many friends here tonight. I've asked a few friends since Charles's death whether they knew him. Friends that I had no idea knew him. And all three of them, from different parts of my world around here, said, of course. That's sort of how it was. I met Charles 20 years ago when I came back to Boston to work on the magazine Agni. And he, of course, was at Mass Cultural Council and basically brought me into this community of writers in Boston. He knew that I was, you know, a writer, but with a very small, far-flung circle of other writers I'd ever known. I had gone and gotten an MFA, and that was it. Before that, I had never known any writers. And he, to him, that was, I think that was the world he lived in, bringing people in, bringing people into his many communities. And it was only gradually that I started to understand how many other communities he had. That he was a poet was the first thing. Years later that he was a singer, and then that he was also a musician. And he did all sorts of things with me and for the magazine over the years. He and Cecily became the co-chairs, the honorary co-chairs of our 50th anniversary celebration. And he came and he was the musician for one of our launches. And it's one of my great regrets that Zoom has this horrible mode where you know you have to switch something to get it to hear anything but the human voice. And so when he played his didgeridoo, which by the way, he had many didgeridoos, and some of them, one of them, appropriate for an Agni launch, was in the shape of a book. And that means it was the size of a book, but inside it snaked so much back and forth that it could give pretty much the full sound of a didgeridoo. So he played, and it was all lost to our recording. It was lost to the virtual audience. The audience at the Goethe Institute heard it all, and then everybody at home around the country didn't. When he sang, everybody could hear him again because it was a human voice. But when he did his throat singing, he turned his voice into such a perfect instrument that Zoom closed it off altogether, thinking it was not the noise that it was supposed to be hearing. He was magical. I loved him, and like all of us, I loved him and I miss him. There's another thing I want to say, other than emphasizing, you know, what an important force he was for the arts in Massachusetts during that very long period of his work for the Mass Cultural Council. That, like very few people I've ever known, and a great lesson for me repeatedly, he could be around things that he didn't fully approve of. And he was never, or very rarely, you know, directly vicious about it, but he never just bought into it. He never did that thing that other people do of giving a little laugh or, you know, in some way seeming to just let it go. He always knew how to pull back and acknowledge, even as he allowed life to continue. And I love, he brought his his full moral self. We knew what he believed. He was very, very direct and very open. But he could also express those important ethics in all sorts of much, much quieter ways. You could feel it every time when something was wrong. You could feel the ripple of it in Charles's being and his reaction. And I just admired it endlessly.
First of all, thank you to everyone who's spoken. And it is getting late, and I think maybe we want a chance to just mill around and talk a little bit with one another. This podium stuff is part of what we're doing here tonight, but I also just, it came to me that I should say this, that when I met Charles, that's how most of the stories tonight started, it was back in the 80s, and we had both won Mass Cultural Council grants. We were new fellows, and we were at the reception. And we bumped into each other and started a conversation that has never ended. But that simple. It was one conversation for all of those years, for maybe only almost 40 years. But the interesting part of this story is that the then director, I don't remember who she was, came over. I mean, she may have been the director of the Mass Cultural Council. She may have been the director of the grants program. I don't know. But she came over and was congratulating us, you know, and we said thank you very much. And Charles asked her a question, and somehow in the conversation she let drop that she was going to be leaving Mass Cultural Council. And Charles said, excuse me, to me, and said, do you have a minute? And walked her aside, and the next week he was working in her job. So, and we've all benefited from that. I just love that I was there at the creation, you know. But anyway, thanks to everyone who came out in this shitty weather and spoke this evening. I don't know. I think so, yes. I guess I just want to say, Charles, we have loved you, and you're gone, and we still love you. Thanks for everything.
So I think we're getting near the end. Thank you for being here, all of you. This has been really delicious. Just such a dive into Charles' poetry. Just a wonderful evening. It is recorded live on our YouTube channel, Community Church of Boston. You can find it there, as well as a couple of other events where Charles was featured here at the church. So please welcome. If you want to find out more about our upcoming programs, just give us your mailing list. And there's a lot of delicious food back there. Please linger as long as the Spirit moves. Thank you.
I just want to make sure people know about January 24th at the Friends meeting.
Sure. Go ahead. Just talk into it right now.
Hi, my name is Rachel Goodwin, and I just want to make sure that you all know there's going to be, I think, 2 more events, and one of them is at Friends Meeting Cambridge. It's a beautiful room where actually Charles more than once did his book openings. And that's going to be on January 24th, which is a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And anybody who would like to help with the program or anything about it, let me know.
And also, right here at Community Church on Sunday, February 15th, 11 a.m. A lot of participants, I'm sure.
Hey Dean, this is Vijaya from Medford. Just wanted to say hello.
All right.
It's a great song.
Hi Richard.
Get you two to come sing it. I've been going up to Burlington.
I've been wanting to sing. I wrote to the people on Facebook and I said, I have another one that was not that one that I want to share with them also. It's about La Migra on a rampage through our cities like Godzilla. and I haven't gotten any response still. Okay, yeah, well, yeah.
Let's find a date.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
We'll find a time.
Yeah, man. Sign me up. Exactly. Oh, okay. But you do have sound. That's the thing. I didn't know if there was even sound or anything. Okay, great. Okie dokie. Yeah, all right. Thank you very much.
Hey, Charlie.
Oh, hi. Probably you can stop the YouTube. I'd leave the Zoom up and let people who want to chat. Yeah, and then encourage people to chat.
Can you hear me?
Folks
if I
who are
chat?
still on the Zoom, we're going to just leave the Zoom on, and you can unmute yourself and chat amongst each other, okay? Thank you for being with us tonight, Zoomsters.
Thank you so much.
I see a few that I know. Hi, Vijaya.
Hi, is that Dean?
Yeah.
Hi. And thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
I remember that space so fondly. I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
face her eyes.
Oh, sing that song, I like it.
I see the future in your eyes. A more perfect you, devious smile. And if dark woods fire.
I love that song, especially when you sing it. You sing it well. Oh, get my bag. I'm sorry. It's right there. I'm sorry. It's right that big bag. Yeah. It's the bag where the desk where all my people were. You see it? Yeah, that's it. I brought all my work. Did it. Can you rest tomorrow a little? Or not?
I'm trying to figure out if I'm
Maybe she can come tomorrow.
going up to Burlington tomorrow.
Oh, that's a lot to do. That's a lot to do. After a full week, a full night.
Yeah.
It's up to you. It's important work.